They gave me medals for killing children. Silver stars pinned to armor that cost more than entire settlements would see in a lifetime. The Enclave called it genetic purity, but I know what it really was, and why I finally turned my rifle on my own commander when he ordered me to burn down a safe house full of refugees. If you're hearing this recording, then you need to know the truth about America's last pure humans, and why we were the real disease all along. If you're hearing this, then you've found what's left of me. Maybe you're scavenging through the ruins of Raven Rock, or maybe you stumbled across my body in some irradiated hellhole where I finally stopped running. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you listen, really listen, because everything they tell you about purity, about rebuilding America, about being the chosen ones, it's all soaked in blood that'll never wash clean. My name was Sergeant Marcus, Hayes, Sigma Squad, Enclave Armed Forces. Was. That man died somewhere between the first child I shot and the moment I realized we weren't saving anyone. We were the disease we claimed to cure. You want to know what it's like being pure? Being told from birth that your blood is clean, untouched by radiation, while everyone else is a walking contamination. They start when you're young, 5, maybe 6 years old. You're sitting in a sterile white classroom beneath tons of reinforced concrete and steel, watching holotapes of the old world. Cherry trees in Washington, baseball games, families having picnics without checking rad counters, beautiful lies about what America used to be. Then they show you what's outside. Ghouls with their skin falling off in sheets, super mutants crushing, skulls with sledgehammers, raiders wearing human bones as jewelry. This is what radiation did, the instructor says, his voice calm as death. This is what happens when inferior genetics spread unchecked. But you, children, you are pure. You are the real Americans. Everyone else is an evolutionary dead end that needs to be pruned. I was 7 when I first put on training power armor. Not the real thing, a stripped down version for kids. But it still weighed enough to make your bones ache. They taught us to move in it, fight in it, think in it. This armor is America, they'd say. When you wear it, you carry the weight of rebuilding civilization. The servos would whine when you moved wrong. The rebreather would fog up when you cried. But you learned not to cry. Pure Americans don't cry over necessary sacrifices. By 10, we were learning to categorize mutations. Grade 1, minimal deviation, possible sterilization, and re-education. Grade 2, visible contamination, termination recommended. Grade 3, aggressive mutation, immediate termination required. They'd show us pictures, make us memorize the signs, a 6th finger, patches of rough skin, eyes that caught light wrong in the dark. Even the smallest impurity, they'd tell us, is a cancer that spreads. You know what they never told us? That the pure humans hiding in our bunkers were dying out. Generations of inbreeding, recycled air, and processed food were killing us slowly. Birth rates dropping, cancer rates climbing. But mentioning that was treason. So we kept our helmets on and pretended we couldn't smell the rot underneath. I got my first real deployment at 18. Full T-51B power armor, plasma rifle, and orders to pacify a settlement suspected of harboring genetic deviants. That's what we called people, not survivors, not Americans, deviants. Made it easier when you pulled the trigger. The settlement was nothing special, maybe 40 people living in old subway cars they'd dragged together. They had a Brahmin pen, some crops growing in irradiated soil, kids playing with toys made from scrap metal. When our Vertibird descended, black as judgment with rotors that shook the earth, those kids just stopped. Stood there staring up at us like we were gods descending from heaven. We were gods in a way. Gods of death wrapped in steel and ceramic, powered by fusion cores that hummed like angry wasps. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the helmet comm. Genetic scan shows multiple contamination signatures. Initiate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 meant no survivors. The adults tried to run. Some grabbed weapons, pipe rifles, rusty, pistols. A few laser weapons probably scavenged from dead Brotherhood patrols. Didn't matter. Plasma bolts turn flesh into green vapor, whether you're holding a gun or a garden hoe. The smell gets through the filters somehow, sweet and metallic, like copper pennies dissolved in sugar water. But it was the children that started the crack in my programming. This little girl couldn't have been older than my sister back at Control Station ENCLAVE. She had 6 fingers on her left hand. Grade 2, contamination. She was hugging this teddy bear made from old fatigues, and she looked at me, right at me, through 2 tons of powered armor, and asked, "Are you here to help?" My targeting system highlighted her in red. Threat level, minimal. Contamination, level, terminal. Order, terminate. I stood there for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Morrison barked in my ear. "Hayes! Execute directive." You're trained for this moment. Years of conditioning kick in. Your finger moves without conscious thought. The plasma bolt takes less than a second to cover the distance. The teddy bear fell in a different direction than what was left. "Good kill, Hayes," Morrison said. "Mark sector clear. Move to grid 7. Good kill. Like I just tagged a radstag for dinner. We cleaned out that settlement in 14 minutes. Efficient, professional, pure. The after-action report listed 43 genetic deviants eliminated, 0 enclave casualties, mission success. They gave us commendations. I still have mine somewhere. A silver star with an eagle clutching lightning bolts for exceptional service in genetic pacification operations. That night, back at base, I couldn't get the armor off fast enough. Told myself it was just the recycled air making me sick. But when I finally peeled out of that metal coffin, I caught my reflection in the polished steel. Same face I'd always had. Same pure features. But behind my eyes, something had shifted. A fault line that would only grow wider with each mission. The bunker's psychiatrist, Dr. Chen, yes, we had shrinks. Even the Enclave knew sending teenagers to commit genocide might cause some psychological complications. Told me it was natural to experience adjustment resistance during early operations. Your empathy circuits are still calibrated for pre-war civilization, she explained, like I was a machine that needed tuning. These feelings will pass as you understand the necessity of our work. Remember, we're not destroying life, we're preventing the spread of genetic chaos. Every contaminated bloodline we end saves countless pure humans in the future. She gave me pills, little white tablets that made everything feel like it was happening to someone else. They helped for a while. Made it easier to watch through my helmet's display as another settlement burned. Another degenerate begged for their child's life. Another pure American future was secured through applied violence. But pills can't fix what breaks when you realize the monster you're hunting has been staring back at you from every reflective surface. When you understand that the power armor doesn't protect you from the wasteland, it protects the wasteland from you. The real education came during the Capital Wasteland campaign. 6 months of systematic cleansing across what used to be Virginia. We had new toys by then. Hellfire armor that could burn through Brotherhood T-45s like tissue paper, plasma casters that could vaporize a super mutant in one shot, and something called the Forced Evolutionary Virus Eradication Protocol, VERP for short. Funny how we gave genocide such clean acronyms. Morrison got promoted to colonel. I made lieutenant. They gave me my own squad of fresh-faced pure bloods, kids who still believed they were heroes. I saw myself in them, that same eager light, in their eyes, that same desperate need to matter, to be part of something greater. I wanted to grab them by the shoulders and scream the truth, but the pills kept my mouth shut and my trigger finger steady. You learn things when you wear the armor long enough, like how a ghoul's rad-eaten vocal cords make them scream different than smooth skins. Higher pitched, almost whistling, or how super mutants always reach for their dead brothers before they think about their own wounds. Or how every single contaminated settlement we hit had the same things we did. Photos of loved ones, hidden food supplies, children's toys, carved from Brahmin bone. Private Johnson was the first of my squad to ask the question. We'd just finished pacifying a trading post. 26 dead, all contaminated to various degrees. Johnson was standing over this old man we'd shot, probably 70 years old, maybe more. The man had been reading a book when we arrived, still had his finger marking the page. "Sir," Johnson said, voice crackling through the comm, "what makes us different from raiders?" The correct answer was rehearsed, automatic. "We're rebuilding America, soldier. They're destroying it." "But sir, we just destroyed this place. We eliminated a contamination vector that threatened genetic purity. They were just trading water and ammunition. I should have reported him for ideological deviation. That's what a pure American would do. Instead, I told him to police the weapons and keep moving, but his question had already metastasized in my mind. What did make us different from raiders? Better armor, cleaner bunkers, the flag on our shoulders. The answer came during the Grey Ditch massacre. Intelligence reported a nest of fire ants had been cleared out by locals, potential settlement site for pure humans after decontamination. We arrived to find about 60 people who'd built something beautiful. Gardens growing inside rad-scrubbed greenhouses, a school where kids learned to read from pre-war books. They'd even rigged up a water purifier that actually worked. The town spokesman, a ghoul named Marcus, yes, same name as me, the irony wasn't lost, approached with his hands up. Half his face was melted, one eye clouded white, but he spoke clearer than most pure humans I knew. "We're peaceful," he said. "We trade with everyone. Human, ghoul, even super mutants if they don't shoot first. We've got medicine, food, clean water. We can share." Colonel Morrison's response was to activate his Hellfire Armor's flamer unit. Marcus burned for 47 seconds. I counted. You count things like that when you're trying not to think about what you're seeing. But here's what broke protocol. The town didn't run. They formed a defensive line. Humans standing next to ghouls. A super mutant wearing a flower crown some kid must have made him. Even saw a woman with scales growing on her arms. Grade 3 contamination, kill on sight, holding a laser rifle she clearly knew how to use. "Protect the children," someone shouted. Not protect the pure or protect the humans, the children, all of them. The fight lasted 6 minutes. Their laser rifles and plasma defenders couldn't penetrate our armor, but they kept firing anyway. A ghoul in a sundress threw herself over a group of kids, like her rotting flesh could stop military-grade energy weapons. The super mutant with the flower crown charged us with a sledgehammer, screaming about protecting his little friends. Johnson hesitated when a human woman stepped in front of a ghoul child. Cost him 2 seconds. Morrison noticed. "Johnson, execute directive or face court-martial." Johnson raised his plasma rifle, lowered it, raised it again. "Sir, they're not fighting anymore, they're just trying to escape." "They're contaminated, Private. Every last one. The children, especially the children. They spread the infection faster." That's when Johnson did something I'll never forget. He turned his plasma rifle toward Morrison. For one beautiful, terrible second, I thought he might actually pull the trigger. Then Morrison's pistol barked twice. Johnson's helmet visor spiderwebbed. He dropped like someone cut his strings. "Genetic traitor," Morrison announced over the squad comm. "Resume pacification." We did. We always did. But as I watched my squad gun down fleeing children, something Dr. Chen said echoed in my helmet. Every contaminated bloodline we end saves countless pure humans in the future, except I'd started doing the math. In 5 years of operations, I'd killed maybe 3,000 contaminants. In that same time, 47 pure humans in my unit had died, from cancer, from suicide, from training accidents that looked suspicious, from executing each other for ideological deviation. We weren't saving anyone, we were just very good at killing. The pills stopped working after Greyditch, started seeing faces in the dark. That little girl with 6 fingers. Marcus the ghoul, still trying to speak as he burned. Johnson, visor cracked, blood pooling in his helmet. Dr. Chen upped my dosage, then upped it again, started giving me injections of something that made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges. "You're experiencing cognitive dissonance," she explained during a mandatory session. "Your pre-war moral framework is conflicting with necessary post-war survival strategies. We need to realign your perspective." "What if our perspective is wrong?" I asked. She stopped writing, looked at me over those wireframe glasses that somehow survived the nuclear holocaust. "Wrong. Sergeant Hayes, we are the United States government. We are the continuation of democracy, of civilization, of human purity. How can we be wrong?" Johnson asked what made us different from raiders. "And you saw what happened to Johnson. Is that a threat, Doctor?" "It's a diagnosis. Johnson suffered from terminal empathy. He prioritized individual suffering over species survival. Don't make his mistake." But I'd already made it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them forming. That defensive line, contaminated and pure, human and mutant, standing together against us, against America. And for 6 minutes, they'd been more united than the Enclave ever was. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Operation Purity, Morrison's baby, his ticket to general. We'd gotten intelligence about something called the Railroad. Group of idealists smuggling synths out of the Commonwealth, helping them disappear into the wasteland. Morrison figured, if we hit them hard enough, we could track their routes back to the Institute itself. Except the cell we found wasn't just synths. It was everyone. Humans, ghouls, super mutants, synths, even a couple of those talking deathclaws from up north. Yes, they exist. And yes, they're just as terrifying as you'd think. They were running an underground railroad for anyone fleeing violence. Raiders, Enclave, Brotherhood. Didn't matter who was hunting you. They'd help you disappear. Morrison wanted to use them, pretend to be refugees, infiltrate their network, map their safe houses, then burn it all down from the inside. Classic Enclave strategy, but it meant taking off our armor, walking among them, pretending to be contaminated. "Genetic scans will give us away," I pointed out. "Not if we're careful. Avoid their doctors. Keep our distance. 3 days maximum, then we call in the strike." 3 days. 3 days of living outside the armor, outside the bunker, outside the lie. The safe house was an old Robco factory, machines long dead, but walls still solid. They'd strung up lights powered by fusion batteries, created little rooms with hanging blankets, painted murals on the rusted walls, images of people holding hands, all different, all together. It looked like hope. It looked like everything we were trained to destroy. The woman running it was called Mother Sarah. Never got another name. She was pure human by our standards. Not a trace of radiation damage, could have walked into Control Station ENCLAVE and passed every genetic scan. But she wore a ghoul's hand as a necklace. Her wife's, she told me later, kept it after ferals tore her apart. "So she can still hold my hand," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Morrison played his part perfectly. Fed them a story about Brotherhood persecution, needing to head west, grateful for any help. They didn't scan us, didn't test us, just handed us bowls of radstag stew and pointed to empty bedrolls. "Rest," Mother Sarah said. "You're safe here, safe, surrounded by every classification of genetic deviant we were trained to eliminate." And she called it safe. I couldn't sleep that first night. Kept waiting for someone to attack, for the contamination to spread, for the violence we were taught was inevitable when pure and impure mixed. Instead, I watched a super mutant named Grognak teach human children to read. Watched a ghoul doctor treat a raider's infected wound without asking how he got it. Watched a synth and a human play chess while arguing about pre-war baseball statistics. TKSMC, second day, a kid approached me. Maybe 8 years old, extra fingers on both hands, patches of green-tinted skin. Grade 3 contamination. Terminal case. You look sad, she said. I'm fine. My papa says it's okay to be sad. Says it means you still got feelings. Better than being like the metal men who don't feel nothing. Metal men. That's what they called us. Not Enclave, not Americans, not soldiers. Metal men. Your papa sounds smart. He was. Raiders got him last winter. But Mother Sarah says he's still with us. In here. She tapped her chest. Do you got anyone in there? Johnson's cracked visor flashed in my mind. Yeah, I do. She smiled, and I realized it was the first genuine smile I'd seen in years. No agenda, no fear, no calculation. Just a contaminated child being kind to a stranger. That night, Morrison pulled me aside. Tomorrow at 600, I've mapped their communication network. When I give the signal, we eliminate Mother Sarah and transmit our coordinates. Vertibirds will handle the rest. There's over 200 people here. Half are children. Contaminated children. Future threats. They're not threats. They're just people. Morrison's hand moved to his sidearm. Johnson talked like that. Maybe. Johnson was right. Careful, Hayes. That sounds like treason. Then what do you call what we're about to do? These people helped us, fed us, protected us. They're genetic deviants harboring enemies of the state. They're survivors trying to build something better. There is no better without genetic purity. You know this. But I didn't know it anymore. All I knew was that tomorrow, Morrison would signal our position and everyone here would burn. Grognak. With his reading lessons. The chess players. The little girl with extra fingers. Mother Sarah still holding her wife's hand. At a 500, I made my choice. I found Mother Sarah in the medical bay, preparing supplies for the new arrivals. Told her everything. Who we were, why we were here, what was coming. Watched her face cycle through disbelief, horror, and finally, a terrible understanding. How long do we have? Less than an hour if we're lucky. She didn't waste time on anger or accusations. Just hit an alarm that sent everyone into practiced motion. They'd done this before. Of course they had. When the whole world wants you dead, you learn to run fast. Morrison figured it out when the safe house started emptying. Found me helping, carry kids to the escape tunnels. He had his plasma pistol drawn, helmet on, fully armored while I stood there in scavenged wasteland rags. Genetic traitor, he said, like he was diagnosing a disease. These people aren't the enemy, Morrison. They're contaminated. So what? So fucking what? They laugh, they cry, they love each other. What makes our genes worth more than that? Our genes are pure. Our genes are dying. Cancer rates through the roof. Fertility dropping. Suicide epidemic. We're not pure, Morrison. We're inbred bunker rats too scared to admit we lost the same war everyone else did. He shot me. Plasma bolt caught me center mass, threw me back into a pile of medical supplies. The pain was extraordinary, like being unmade at the molecular level. But through the agony, I heard something beautiful. Morrison's scream as Grognak's sledgehammer connected with his helmet. The super mutant I'd watched teach children to read just saved my life by killing my commanding officer. Mother Sarah worked on me for 6 hours. Said later she'd never seen someone survive a direct plasma hit to the torso. But I had good genes, right? Pure American genes that kept me breathing, while my organs tried to reorganize themselves. The irony would have made me laugh if laughing didn't feel like swallowing molten glass. The Vertibirds came anyway. Someone at command must have gotten suspicious when Morrison missed check-in. But the safe house was empty by then. Everyone scattered through tunnels that ran for miles under the wasteland. They found Morrison's body and me, half dead, being tended by a ghoul doctor who didn't run when the metal men came. The squad that processed the scene was led by Captain Chen, Dr. Chen's son, because of course nepotism survived the nuclear. Holocaust too. He looked at Morrison's caved-in helmet, at me lying there with my guts held in by stim packs and prayer, at the ghoul doctor who kept working even with plasma rifles pointed at his head. Sergeant Hayes, You're under arrest for treason, murder of a superior officer, and genetic collaboration. I laughed. Hurt like hell, but I laughed. Genetic collaboration? Is that what we're calling compassion now? They dragged me back to Control Station ENCLAVE. Court-martial was a formality. Colonel Richardson, presiding judge, made a big speech about purity and duty and the American way. How I'd betrayed not just the Enclave, but the future of humanity itself. The sentence was death, obviously, but they wanted information first. Where did the railroad go? What were their protocols? Who else in the Enclave might be compromised? Dr. Chen handled the interrogation personally. More drugs, electrical stimulation, sensory deprivation, all very clinical. She kept asking the same question. Why did you choose them over us? The answer came during hour 36, when the drugs had stripped away everything but the truth. Because they chose each other. She didn't understand. How could she? She'd never seen a human comfort a dying ghoul, never watched a super mutant teach poetry, never witnessed synths and humans falling in love, never observed raiders and settlers sharing medicine. All she saw were genetic categories, contamination levels, things to be purged. They decided on a public execution. Good for morale, Richardson said. Show the troops what happens to genetic traitors. But the night before, someone left my cell door unlocked. Never found out who. Could have been a railroad sympathizer. Could have been someone else asking Morrison's question. Could have been Dr. Chen herself, finally understanding that executing me wouldn't stop the questions. I ran, powered through plasma burns that hadn't fully healed, stumbled into the wasteland wearing a stolen maintenance uniform and boots that didn't fit. The Enclave hunted me, obviously. Can't have a genetic traitor spreading truth about their pure American paradise. But the wasteland's big and contaminated people are surprisingly good at hiding pure ones who've learned to see past genetics. From dying now, the plasma wound never healed right, and radiation's finally catching up to these pure genes. Funny how that works. Spent so long afraid of contamination, turns out the real poison was in my head all along. The railroad people, they offered me treatment. Even found a working autodoc that might buy me a few more years. But I'm tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of carrying what I've done. So I'm leaving this recording in places the Enclave might search. Let them hear it. Let those fresh-faced pure bloods in their sterile bunkers know what they're really fighting for. Not America, not democracy, not the future, just fear dressed up in power armor, using genocide to avoid admitting we're all just survivors in the same dead world. If you're Enclave and you're hearing this, ask yourself, when did you last see a pure human born without medical intervention? When did you last meet someone who was happier inside the bunker than outside? When did you last pull a trigger and feel like a hero instead of an executioner? If you're anyone else, human, ghoul, super mutant, synth, whatever genes you carry, know this. The Enclave fears you, not because you're contaminated, but because you're proof that survival doesn't require purity. You love, you build, you hope, you endure. You're everything they claim only pure genes can produce, and your existence makes their entire worldview a lie. My name was Marcus Hayes. I wore the armor. I pulled the trigger. I was pure, and I was a monster. The contamination didn't make me human. Choosing to remove the helmet did. Don't let them tell you different.